So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with the first ward first. The candidates that are going to be here tonight are Rhonda Locke, Alderman Joe Moreno, Andrew Hamilton, and Ann Shaw.
So this question will be for all of you, and we're going to start with Andrew. Who's going to be the first to answer it. Andrew, what do you see as the #1 problem facing the first ward, and what will you do about it?
Thank you. The #1 problem that I see is the lack of city services being dealt with the community. I've gone door to door since the summer because I think the best way to find out true feedback is by the actual constituents of what they feel is the problem or what we can do to make it better, because that's what a civil servant is here to do, is to make it better. So what I plan on doing as a solution would be a couple things. One, I want to be known as the readily available alderman, so you can hold me accountable in ensuring that all the certain complaints, if you will, for problems being anything from potholes, street lights being out, if there's a tree that needs to be serviced, you can rely on me to respond to that properly. And one way to do that is to develop a mobile application for your phone, to where you can take a photo of it, send in the address, and then you can send it to the alderman's office, so I could, respond to it and make sure the proper bureau or department within the city of Chicago is responding to that properly and timely. Now, as to following up on that, I plan on having numerous follow-ups with each and every supervisor in every department to make sure that the concerns from the constituents is being dealt with properly. So,
Andrew, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I asked what is like the biggest problem that you see, and you're kind of talking about like what your platform is and what you do, like, you know, from crime to schools to development to like, do you see an overarching theme or something that is a big problem in the ward that an alderman like you, if elected, would have the power to help solve that problem? Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. And that's what I was really getting at, that city service is the #1 problem.
Okay,
now, there's obviously more issues as well, but that's the #1 that I see as far as feedback would be for city services.
Thank you. And you don't have to hold 2 minutes. Actually, there'll be more time for other questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Rhonda, can you answer the same question? What do you see as the #1 problem facing the first ward, and what we could do about it?
Okay, well, as alderman, I'm looking at this, and I'm also going door to door, and we don't make these things up. We do, in fact, I'm hearing firsthand that ward services are the #1 issue. I'm going door to door, and I'm hearing rats, potholes, garbage, and unresponsive office. So I will be a full-time alderman, and I will set up an established responsive office where the #1 objective of that office is to service the constituents. Now, again, I did spend 2 years in the office. You can tell by the ward, by my bio, that is in fact what I said would be the #1 thing, to set up a responsive office. I think with my business background, I would establish an office with development plans where staff doesn't turn over, where you have an alderman there 40 hours full-time. Again, I was in the office and I firsthand saw that there was not a full-time alderman there. Also, if you look at the city clerk's website, this alderman was only in his committee meetings 40% of the time. If you look at the City of Chicago's website, there's a declaration of economic interest that shows he still works at the printing company that he worked at prior to getting elected. Problematic when you campaign to be a full-time alderman. So, as an alderman also, I will lead with integrity. When I say I'm going to do something, you will know that's how I'm going to vote and what I stand for. This alderman at a recent EVA meeting just 2 nights ago touted that he has raised money and spent $140,000 for community parks, schools, slope piles, various community efforts over the time that he's been in office. This alderman has also raised over $700,000, and since only $100,000 is in the bank, I question why haven't you done more for the community?
Thank you. I first want to thank the Wicker Park Committee for putting this on, Elisa and Elaine for hosting or for moderating. I also want to thank all of you for coming out, especially in this frigid, cold weather. I'm going to answer the question specifically, unlike the last response, but I do feel that I did respond to some things that were just factually wrong. I did spend $140,000. I don't know of any other alderman that spent $140,000 in 3 years to complement city services. And when I say that, the city, as you know, is strapped. And so I think it's my responsibility to raise money and spend $140,000 on things like graffiti removal. We have an award-winning graffiti removal program. It doesn't cost taxpayers $1. I started that in this ward. We have a text messaging system that I pay for out of my own pocket, not taxpayers, that reminds every one of you if you'd like to move your car in the morning or in the evening, okay? I also am very, very proud of the fact that what I have done in the last 4 years have brought the resources to the ward, and I will continue to do that.
So sorry to interrupt, I really apologize. The question was,
Sure.
what do you see as like the number one problem? You mentioned
I think one thing I would say, if it's fair for others to go offline, I think it should be fair for all 4 of us to go offline. So, let's keep it consistent. Ward services are always a challenge. I have a staff that I'm very proud of that helps, and a volunteer organization that puts their own time and money into helping us at Pritzker School and other places. The biggest challenge that we have, not problem, I don't look at them as problems, I look at them as challenges, is to continue the growth of our schools in this ward. Every single school in this ward has increased their ratings over the last 4 years. We have Clemente High School. Let me talk about Clemente, a great story, and Jose Lopez is here, a community organizer for years that helped us. We brought an international baccalaureate program to Clemente, a school that was on probation for 14 years, had 800 students going there, 3,200 seats. We now have doubled that, and they're at level 2 for the first time in 14 years, and off probation. That's the challenge. I brought it here, and I'm going to continue to do that. Thank you very much.
So the whole reason why I'm sitting here today, as many of you may remember, 2 years ago, a very pivotal police station closed. So the number one issue, not just for our ward and every one of our communities, but also citywide, is public safety. That is the number one issue. We are one of the few wards that lost 2 police stations, the 19th and the 13th. And Joe here actually stated that it was one of his proudest moments of his career to close down the 13th District Police Station. I call that a tragedy. And from that, public safety encompasses many things, including good, fully funded schools. Joe voted for the budget that closed down 50 neighborhood schools. Another tragedy for our community. Another thing that we need that's also hand in hand with public safety is mental health clinics. Not only did Joe vote to close that mental health clinic, but he had a Christmas party in one of our closed mental health clinics 2 weeks ago. all, immediately, we should hire 1,000 police officers. We spend $100 million a year on overtime, which is dangerous for the public as well as to the police because it causes them to work longer hours and get tired. And we can't hire 1,000 police officers just on that overtime alone. That's immediately where we start. Second of all, is we have to examine where we are spending our dollars. You know, there's this concept called TIF money, which is tax increment financing. That money, most of that should have gone to the public schools. And what ends up happening is we're actually starving our public schools and taking away very vital resources. I, for one, am here today, a civil rights attorney for almost 20 years because of the public school education that I received. When I went to grammar school, I didn't speak any English, but it was the social workers as well as, I'm sorry, I'm done, okay. But I benefited greatly from my education in the public school system. Sure.
Thank you, everybody, and this is question 2. So Rhonda will begin this question. Rhonda, do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel should be reelected? Why or why not?
Wow, that's a tough one. No, it's not tough at all. I do not believe he needs to be reelected, and I firmly believe we need new leadership. We need new leadership at the mayoral level as well as the aldermanic level. I agree with Ann in terms of the budget decision, the budget that was, we've actually had fees and fines raised over $500 per family, per person, every single year since Rahm has been in place. That 2012 budget that closed our multiple 3 police stations, raised the parking and water fees, closed half of our mental health clinics. Sheriff Dart has indicated that the Cook County jail system has become the #1 provider of mental health services. So when you talk about crime, mental health services are directly related to that, and that goes across the city. So, I think that we need to fight. I'm an advocate. My platform is development that puts the community first. Education. This alderman is wrong on education. We have had, the charter school expansion. Yes, this alderman will tout that he tried to save 2 neighborhood schools in Humboldt Park, but that was the direct result of the very first year he was in office. He brought in Uno School right next to the 2 charter schools.
So sorry.
So you asked me why, and I'm explaining why Ron is the wrong candidate.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
Okay. But at the same token, the policies of education are wrong. It's privatizing is what he's trying to do. He's trying to bust the unions. And, we are the only city in the entire state with an appointed school board. And that is wrong because the board is not responsive to us, the stakeholders. I'm a CPS mom. I'm twice elected to an LSC. I care about public education. And I will advocate for policies that put the stakeholders first. And I believe that our mayor is for privatizing. His cronies that are on that board have had multiple investments that are costing tax dollars. I'm getting cut off here.
And the next question is for Alderman Moreno. Same question. Do you think Mayor Rahm Emanuel should be reelected? Why or why not?
Thank you. I'm the only alderman besides Rick Munoz of the Latino caucus that's not endorsed the mayor. I'm the only alderman in the Paul Douglas Alliance besides the Mayor Poar that hasn't endorsed the mayor. When I came in, previously aldermen and committeemen basically made decisions to endorse people by themselves, and then they asked volunteers to go out and campaign for them. I didn't do that. I have a board of directors, an endorsement committee. It goes through them first on whether we endorse, as we did Will Gazzardi, as we did Mike Frericks, and as we did President Preckwinkle. We're going to follow that same endorsement process for this mayoral election, and I'm having coffee with Chuy Garcia next week, so we'll see. A couple things I want to add to that. We didn't vote on a budget. My opponent said we voted on a budget to close schools. That's incorrect. That's unfactually correct. We did not vote on a budget to close schools. That's not in the City Council's budget. That's in CPS's budget. Secondly, I would say to my opponent to the right and to the left, if you don't want to use TIF money and you want to all return to the schools, which I voted for, of only 11 aldermen, progressive aldermen, I I'd like you to go over to Diego and tell those parents and students of low income that they don't get their new playground that we just built with TIF money. Then also go to Chase School, a little bit farther west. There's parents here from Chase School. Tell them that they don't get a new playground that I allocated TIF money to buy. And then go to the nursing school right behind us that we brought from the suburbs into the city. 300 nursing students going there. 15% get free tuition if they're low income. That's the proper use of TIF money, all right? I want to close on this as well. I would like Rhonda to go visit Uno's school. Go visit Erie School. And you talk to the parents at those schools, and you tell them that their school shouldn't be there. Parents that are choosing to have their students go there. Now, I think that our charter schools have gone too far. That's why I support a moratorium. But if you've never visited this school, don't say it should be shut.
Excuse me.
I was told that we're just getting away from the Goodness, I'm hungry. This time has been off. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. For some unknown reason, I cannot hear that clicker. Thank you. Oh wait, okay, let's go on. I don't know. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ann, you're next. Rami, Ann, thank you. This is for Ann Shaw.
I will never cut off debate ever in my life. You'll know that too. I'll never cut debate off.
Okay, Ann is next, Ann Shaw. Ann, that's you. Thanks. Should he be elected? Re-elected, excuse me.
So, I have actually weighed this quite heavily because a lot of the policies that Joe actually voted for and supported, and the fact that he votes 95% with the mayor, you know, a lot of those policies really critically hurt the first ward. And I've already explained that earlier on how they did that, and they continue to do that, especially with public safety. I mean, it's gotten so bad that I hate to have to say it, but the mayor's own son was mugged in front of his home. And, you know, and I actually did, and a lot of people don't realize this, but when I was fighting to save the 13th District Police Station from closing, I actually approached Rahm Emanuel and handed him 4,500 signatures that myself and the community out here, many of you are out here sitting out here today, went and collected. And I actually said, Mayor Emanuel, please don't close our police stations. And he said, you know what, Ann, I'm closing my own police station. And I said to him, I said, Mayor, please don't even close yours, because I'm sure your community needs their station as well. And sure enough, I hate to say that this happened to his son. So there are definitely serious issues with the city, budget issues, and things that we need to address, but the way things are being done for the last 4 years is not the right way. Because what we're essentially doing is hurting the people the least able to afford this by looking at raising taxes, fees, fines, cutting school budgets, and believe it or not, the CPS budget is part of the overall City of Chicago budget, which is actually voted on by the City Council. So, you want to grab this from me? So the bottom line is, I respect, and I very much, being a challenger myself, I very much respect and am proud that we have strong challengers out there who I absolutely support. I'm still weighing that option now, but I'm definitely leaning towards one of the challengers. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, you're up next, obviously.
Thank you. Yes, I'm obviously weighing some of the challengers as well, and in particular, I'd like to, similar to tonight's debate, I'd like to hear some of the debates that are happening with the mayor's office. So I'm interested in hearing a little bit more what Chewy has to say. I like his vision with the education platform. Staunch supporter. He's supported by or endorsed by the CTU. I think that's the vision of education for the future, starting with trying to have a smaller ratio in schools for teacher to student. We need healthier plans for our students when it comes to eating, playtime so they can stay healthy. I'd also like to see, in addition to what the CTU is stressing, is competitive salaries for our teachers in a traditional sense. And we also, so that's the platform that I see that is the future. I have mixed feelings when it comes to charter schools. I think the elected school board is something that we need, not an appointment. Let the people decide what's in the best interest of our community and our schools.
So sorry, hi. Just, if you can just indicate why Ron should not be reelected. Like, you're talking a lot about overall policies and things, like what is the main reason why we should not have him as our mayor again?
Well, it's not that I'm very interested in what Chuy Garcia has to say from here to February. But as to Ron, there are some things I agree with Ron and there are some things I disagree with. And number one is, I feel when it comes to our city budget, it's just, 2015 is just another way of kicking the can down the road. We refinanced our bonds, which is basically just borrowing more money to pay our current cost off.
Gotcha, thank you. We appreciate it, thank you. Okay, this next one's kind of fun, I like this one. Okay, so this is a question, it's first ward, but it's also all over the city. There's been a rise in transit-oriented developments, which are, developments that are near transit-friendly areas that usually have 400 square feet or less. It allows developers to offer half the amount of required parking spaces, or sometimes no parking spaces at all. It's kind of a two-part question. One, do you support these developments? And secondly, some people complain that these developments are geared towards, younger single people at the extent of not attracting families to the neighborhood. Do you see that as a problem? And if so, what can be done about it? So basically, are you supportive of the transit-oriented developments? Your thoughts on it? We'll start with Joe Moreno, Alderman.
Well, I'm obviously supportive of it because I was the lead sponsor in getting it passed in City Council, citywide. Not a lot of our aldermen pass citywide ordinances, and I'm proud of a few that I've done, the TOD ordinance being one of them. What TOD does is that it allows for density by our hard rails. So the first one in the city that was built was at Ashland Division, the Wicker Park Committee that's here tonight, and the East Village Association. We worked very closely with those two community groups to make that a reality. We had a dilapidated Pizza Hut there, as you all know, generating about $10,000 in real estate taxes, a blight on the community, and the only thing that could be built before my ordinance passed citywide was another basic one-story Walgreens, one-story McDonald's. The community felt that TOD was appropriate for that site. We now have 99 units there, 100% full. Of the 99 units, 10% are truly affordable units. I'm going to tell a cute story, a neat story, not a cute story about that. And the residents there rely on the rail and their cycles to get around the city. It's better for the environment. I'm proud the Wicker Park Committee just tonight supported the third one. The community organization here that I refer to zoning changes to, supported the third one on Milwaukee Avenue. They're going to generate real estate taxes, and they're going to allow for people that don't want a car, don't need a car, and never see them having a car to live there. I knocked on the doors at Ashland Division about a month ago on a Saturday. About a third of the residents were home, about 33 people we talked to. Not one person has a car. And a woman answered the door, and I said, hey, if you give me your email address, I'll send you the newsletter I send out every week. African-American woman, I would guess in her late 20s, early 30s. I would never ask a woman or anybody their age. She gave me a Northwestern address. She's going to Northwestern for grad school. She grew up in affordable housing on 11th Street, the same street I live on, and is now back in the neighborhood getting her graduate degree, living in that building. I'm very proud of her.
The rise in transit-oriented, do you support transit-oriented developments? Do you see them as a problem, and what can be done about it if it is a problem?
Well, I'd like to take a look and see how well this first one that is at Division and Ashland, what the future holds for as far as what type of parking will be available. What I do have an issue with is folks that have lived in this community for 30 plus years, or have even recently just moved to this community, chose this area, because it's a neighborhood, it's a community. I want to keep it that way, so I don't know necessarily if this is going to benefit the community without the fact that, so that's pretty much my position as to the transit-oriented development. I'd like to see how it plays out, but at first I would still also say that I'm leaning towards being against it just because of that it takes away from the community, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And then Ann will be next on this one. Transit-oriented.
First of all, I want to make it clear that I will not take developer money that's tied to any development or any type of zoning. In the first ward. While I like the concept of TOD buildings, because obviously I like things that are good for the environment, good for the community, what I have seen is, I was a past president of East Village Association, and our group, we were instrumental in improving Division Street and many of our areas, but we are also suffering today from many of our successes in poorly built and overbuilt development, in the loss of historic buildings, and that is continuing now into other areas such as Logan Square. And I have to say, I'm very concerned because we have such beautiful, beautiful communities, great diversity, and I don't want any of these communities to lose their flavor. This is why people like to come to live in East Village or Ukrainian Village or Logan Square, because of what's already there. And I'm all about right-sized development, realistic development that fits within the community. And my issue with TODs right now as it's written is it's pushing things too fast before the infrastructure can be there in place, before the community's ready. I saw firsthand how I lost my neighbors, seniors and families, working families who had been there for 50 years, 60 years, 20 years, because they couldn't afford the property taxes. And it totally and fundamentally changed my community. Now, I love my new community. I love my new neighbors such as Ron Locke and Andrew, but I miss some of my other neighbors too. And so I've met with many great community members in Wicker Park, in Logan Square, Ukrainian Village, and they say the same thing. And we need an alderman that stands first for our people, not like Joe who takes a lot from our developers. Thank you.
First of all, I apologize for taking the mic. I misinterpreted Elaine's like cutting the throat, so sorry for that. But you know, as alderman, I am absolutely for sound developments and development that respects the input of the community and that also is compatible with the community in which it's being built. Now, I think a major part of my platform, which is on my website and which I also shared with the Wicker Park Forum, is that I would like to craft master plans, a collaboration between the residents, the local businesses, and the chamber, and craft how does that neighborhood want to grow? What type of development do they want? What type of businesses should they be trying to attract? I think this is important because through collaboration, I think then you're not responding to one-off developments. What concerns me about some of the developments that we've recently heard of is that, again, they're one-off and nobody's looking at it from a master plan. I'm not hearing anybody talk about the Milwaukee corridor plan that a lot of time and money went into it in 2008 between California and Western. Now, in transit-oriented development, TOD is absolutely in favor of density. But again, how does that fit in with the community? Is it the right size? Does it have the character? Is the community that it's surrounding, does it have a proper fit? And so what I would like to do with the TOD ordinance is actually put some additional structure around it. First of all, I would point out that the East Village Association PD group, Scott Rapp being one, I don't know if Scott's here tonight, but there was a lot of time and effort put into TOD, starting actually all the way back in 2007. So we have to give credit that the East Village Community Group, of which I wasn't involved during those years, but they were the ones that were actually working with Manny for the concept of it. We can't lose sight of the community that helped to bring that here. But again, you know, again, I refer to the most recent EVA meeting, and this alderman said that, yes, people keep saying he takes developer, but nobody's bringing in some specifics. Well, I would like to bring out some specifics. Byfield, the development property.
Oh, you're done. Thank you. Thank you. A lot of passion there. Okay, great. The next question is, Andrew will be answering this one first. This is a According to the 2010 U.S. Census, Latinos make up 43% of the first ward. What services or issues are unique to Latinos, and how have you or will you plan on servicing this population?
It's a great question. Some of you may know, I'm an attorney. I'd say 70% of my clients are Hispanic. So it's very important to me what goes on in their day-to-day life and what's going on with the city government for helping the men and women in our community. So what I'd like to see, and my experience has been through the relationships I built with my clients and with friends and family members, or friends that live in the community. A major issue that I like to see is more jobs. Jobs are very important in the Hispanic community. I'm going to do all I can to make sure that there's more jobs in the first ward. Trying to promote businesses. I agree with Joe in one aspect that I would have raised the minimum wage as well, because I think it's important for men and women to have support their family when it comes to their day-to-day living and their costs. The previous minimum wage is just not enough to make ends meet, and that's again. So the Hispanic community is very near and dear to my heart. If elected alderman, I can tell you this: I'll make a pledge right now. My Spanish is not that good, but if I'm your next alderman, I can tell you I'll be speaking Spanish 4 years from now. So thank you.
Gracias por su pregunta. Yo soy concejal Joe Moreno. Mis abuelos son de San Luis Potosí, México. Mi papá es mexicano, mi mamá es mexicana. Mi esposa Selena es boricua, sí. Entonces, es muy importante es latinos en primero distrito, ¿ok? Es las calles, parcero, city services, streets and sanitation, trabajos, as my friend says, muy importante. Pero escuelas, muy importante for Latinos. So what I said is, thank you for asking the question. My name is Joe Moreno. My grandparents immigrated here from Mexico. I had my father here. My mom was born here on a small farm. Latinos have the same things that we all have. They want good schools. They want clean streets. They want a safe community. They want to be able to talk to their alderman in the language they prefer, right? So if you come to my ward night, and actually that number's a little higher because that's based on voting age population, not total populations. I just met last night with the Ramirez family. Senora Ramirez crying to me because People's Gas, who I wish I had more time to go at that company, was threatening to cut their heat off yesterday. And I can't sit there and not say, and I'm glad Andrew's going to learn Spanish, I appreciate that. But if you're going to run for a ward that you know is a majority Latino ward, I think you should already know a little bit. In fact, you should know a lot. And the Latino community in the first ward is thriving. The Latino community in the city is growing, as you know. The last thing that's very
Okay.
is immigration reform.
I know you only have like 10 seconds.
So thank you. Sorry for going over.
Okay, we appreciate it. Okay, it's my fault for not interrupting you sooner and being like, what exactly services are you providing? Whatever. My bad. Okay, great, Rhonda. Okay, so the question is, what services or issues are unique to Latinos, and how have you or will you plan on serving this population?
Also, my response as alderman is very similar to the incumbents, that I think the needs of the Latino families is very similar to all of our needs. Again, good schools, jobs, economic development has got to be a critical component. I feel like Okay, sorry, sounded like it was going on. One key thing, though, I would like to remap. Between 2000 and 2010, the Latino population dramatically dropped in the first ward. And I was in the office working for the alderman during that time of the remap process. And I absolutely believe that that process needs to be reformed. This alderman was concerned about his position in the Latino caucus and dramatically changed.
Can we talk about experience you've had providing services to the population?
Absolutely. Like I did say that I see the needs as very similar to all of our needs. Good quality service. I will establish a responsive office. I think I already gave you in my first answer that. So making sure that we take care of potholes, take care of rat requests, and so ensuring our schools are in economic development, and ensuring that communities feel safe. And the one thing, though, I would point out, because I am walking door to door, a lot of Latino families, I mean, they have the exact same needs as everybody else. So I'm not just assuming this is in talking to the families. And first, I mean, as any good alderman would do, is I'll have a Spanish speaker, and I'll also have resources for other languages as well.
So, my family, we're also immigrants. As I was stating earlier, when I went to school, I didn't speak any English, which is the plight of many of our Latino immigrants and other immigrants from various backgrounds. And I'm here today because of my wonderful teachers and speech therapists and my fully funded public school, that they were able to help me learn English in a safe environment that helped me grow and achieve success today. I wouldn't be here today without that, and I take it very much to heart. I've been a civil rights attorney for almost 19 years. I fight for people's rights, especially Latino families, black families, women, all sorts of people when they are being discriminated against in the workplace, in public accommodations, and I have fought countries, nations who have done this as well. And one of the things that I'm firmly rooted in is because we have to serve our immigrant community, and our communities that don't speak English, they shouldn't be disenfranchised just because English isn't their first language. I'm one of those people too. And so I started one of the first pro bono legal clinics in Chinatown. It is one of the best run in the Midwest. 99% of the people there do not speak English. And we serve...
Can you focus mainly on the issues unique to Latinos in the first ward, and specifically issues that you see that how you service them in the first ward, Latino population?
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question.
Oh, can you focus on, specifically issues and services that are unique to Latinos in the first ward, whether it's affordable housing, schools, daycare, any, concrete issues?
Sure, I'll give you a specific example. So this summer, as I was knocking on doors talking to a lot of communities, I actually met a wonderful gentleman, Mr. Gomez, whose child goes to Chopin, and he said to me, he says, Ms. Shaw, my wife is bipolar, she's suicidal, and she needs her medication, but we're poor. I got laid off at my job. Why did they close our mental health facilities? Can you help me? And he said, why did they close my schools? And he was very upset. Is it because we're not as important? And I said to him, this is why I'm running. Because low-income families, Latino families, all the working families of the first ward, they need these basic services. When we start neglecting and hurting the people who are the least able to bear the burden.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're on to our fifth question before going on to the more general debate type question. So this question is, Anne will be the first one to answer this one. Part of the Streets for Cycling 2020 plan, which is going on right now, they're also to protect lanes, is expanding, the city's exploring the idea of expanding barrier-protected bike lanes on Milwaukee between Ashland and Western, going down there, passing through Wicker Park's main stretch. It could require removing a lane of parking in prime Wicker Park stretch packed with retail shops and restaurants. Would you support bringing protected bike lanes to Milwaukee Avenue between Ashland and Western? And if so, do you have plans for adding more parking spaces to the neighborhood, either off-site or to make up for those spaces? So basically, do you support bike lanes on Milwaukee Avenue between Ashland and Western if it meant removing a lane of parking?
Wow, so it's funny that you bring this up because I've actually had this conversation with a number of business owners and community residents as well as bicyclists. So Milwaukee is become a very, very busy thoroughfare, and it's not very wide because it's angular because it used to be one of the old cow paths. So that's why Chicago, we have these wonderful angular streets that get us across town pretty quickly. But the problem we have is we've actually had a number of dooring accidents and fatalities along that stretch of Milwaukee Avenue. But we also have to keep in mind we have more than, I think, 2 or 3 large concert venues as well. And there are a lot of people who drive into those venues to see shows or seek entertainment. And a lot of the businesses, although they do like the idea of bike lanes, they also have patrons who need to park. So really, there's no really easy answer because, I love biking and I love safe bike lanes, and I really, my husband and I would like to try to bike as much as we can. I'll be honest with you, there are areas I won't bike because I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by a car, like Ashland Avenue. But at the same time, I see the frustration of car owners who have to get to work, or people who want to come to the city, they're afraid they're going to hit a bicyclist. So really we have to do, I'd have to look at this 2020 plan. Part of my platform is a 10-year plan to assess these types of things and see if we can work with the community to come up with a solution that, works for everybody. It may not necessarily be on Milwaukee. We may look at other areas that we could support the bike lanes that follow along the same pathway. But, that's something I'm definitely looking into, and I'm already trying to search for a viable solution. Thank you.
And I should have mentioned this in my question. The reason why Milwaukee is cited is because that's considered a spoke route going downtown as a main thoroughway street. Rhonda?
Well, again, as alderman, I would be looking at the city resources. The CDOT's got a very established transportation engineers, and I would seek input from the community. That question is quite difficult to answer in absence. I too have been talking to retailers or businesses and neighbors, primarily around the BRT. And there is a significant concern about losing parking. So I am very concerned about the rich retail corridor that a lot of local independents have built along Milwaukee corridor to lose an entire strip of parking. And yet I'm not in favor of parking garages. I'm very much in favor of pedestrian zoned stretches where you don't have to worry about a car coming out of a parking garage. So I think that, this is a very tough question. In absence of hearing from experts, of which I am, you don't want me designing your streets, but I do know how to go get expert answers. That I think there needs to be a lot more input before saying unequivocally. Without the input of experts, I would advocate that we look at alternate routes because, again, that stretch is so congested.
Thank you. Andrew? Thank you.
I agree with what Rhonda said as far as that specific location. I'd like to have a little bit more evidence or more research as to whether or not that's the best location for adding more bike lanes. Because number one, I am for promoting health and I am in promoting a greener city. I just don't know if that's going to be the right location for that. I know folks want to commute from their house to if they work downtown or vice versa. So I would like to see more bike paths. I just that specific area is pretty congested, and I would defer to the experts as to whether or not that's going to be sustainable. But I'm always open for other alternative routes. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions, near and dear to my heart. I know some of my opponents said they're tough questions. When you're alderman, you have to make tough decisions. Everything's not easy. So I think that's why we didn't hear a lot of answers, but I'll give you some answers to the things that we've done in the first ward. The Divvy bike sharing program has been a huge success. Myself and Alderman Amaya are the only alderman that put menu money in to bring additional stations in areas where the city didn't want to put them because we had low-income people there. Right? Secondly, Milwaukee Avenue, specifically to the question, we put the first on-street bike route on Milwaukee Avenue, right at Milwaukee, Damon, and Division. In the city, the first one went there. I was able to go to Sevilla, Spain, few years ago to look at their protected bike lane system. Asked experts, talked about this issue. 8 years ago, Sevilla was behind us, right, in terms of bike lanes and whatnot. Their congestion was so bad, what they decided to do as a city is close their downtown central, so it would be like us closing Michigan Avenue, and they put in protected bike lanes throughout the city. Now, I'm not advocating for that, but the Sevilla's experience is this. 80% of people now bike. You see seniors on three-wheelers going to the grocery store. You see men and women in suits going to school on bikes. It's amazing what they did there. So if we're really going to talk about the environment, we're really going to talk about cycling, if you really support that, then you need to support protected bike lanes. Because our bicyclists need protection out there. They do get doored. They do get hurt. But as biking continues to grow in the city of Chicago, we have to look at that. I put the most bike lanes in of any alderman in the city. Now, my wife sometimes disagrees with me when she gets a cyclist that cuts her off. She goes, you don't want to see her. However, it's the cyclists that aren't obeying the law. And Active Transportation Alliance, I'm very supportive of me, is out there making sure they do. Thank you very much.
Great answers from everybody. So basically this is the question number 6, and this is kind of, you get like a minute and a half, and it's a citywide question that I will also be asking the second ward candidates, and then after I ask this, I'll switch the mic, and then Elaine will be asking a citywide question to all 4 of you. So this is the sort of like the broader citywide question. So some aldermen have pledged to not accept monetary contributions from folks that have pending matters coming before city council that require aldermanic approval, such as developers needing zoning changes, billboard companies requiring permits, or bars seeking late night liquor licenses. If elected, would you commit to not taking contributions from those who have pending matters coming before you, the community, and the city? If not, what is the benefit of accepting campaign donations from those that have matters coming before you, and how would you use that money? So in this order, we're going to start with Joe.
Great, thank you. Sure. Our ethics ordinance does not allow for aldermen to take contributions from anything that comes up with a city matter, but I think you need to go further with that. And I'll give a specific example. The developers that are developing Lathrop homes technically do not have anything coming up before the city council. But we've been working on that for the last 4 years, and I don't think it's appropriate, even though we're working on it, it's not technically a part of the city council's agenda to do that. I will say this though, developers like everybody else, they have companies that are employing people. And if there's criticism that I've made a decision based on money I take, I'll take that criticism. But I've spent, again, $140,000. And I've gotten emails from Rhonda Locke that asked why I didn't give another $100,000 to make the developer give it to her park. I've given Rhonda Locke $3,500 over the years from that committee for her to do work in the first ward. Now don't come here and say that you're against developer money because you're in a political election. I've taken the money in the past. I don't recall one time when I gave that money. Not one time when I wrote those checks to her did she say, Joe, did this come from developers? Not one time. So, I think it's, hey look, disagree with me politically and let's have a political debate. The hypocrisy on this issue is what I have a problem with. The hypocrisy.
Yeah, this is just a minute on this one, or a minute and a half about.
I didn't hear the clip, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little shorter.
First of all, $3,500 is less than 1% of the amount of money that this alderman has raised. And again, that is for 4 Circus in the Park ads. So I apologize if I did not ask, but it's not for me. It's not his money to give to me. It's for the park. Commercial Park, I've been a president and involved for 10 years with this park, a long time, and we've helped to bring at least 4 playgrounds to the area through our volunteer efforts. But I think that is a little different than, say, Shambles, which is a 4 a.m. liquor license in the area. This alderman has taken nearly $16,000 from that person alone for a 4 a.m., which was a controversial topic. Another topic, Fifield development on Chicago Avenue was overruled, the community was overruled against opposition.
You know what,
and there
you only
was-
got a minute,
So,
would you accept donations from developers? And if so, how would you use that money?
Donations from developers. The $4,000, which the limit in the ethics ordinance is very clear, a maximum of $1,500 per year, including any entities. And pending is 6 months before anything even goes into committee. So this is a very clear ordinance, and again, I think we need to look at it, and I commit to not taking developer donations.
Andrew, yeah.
No, I will not. If I'm the next alderman, I will not take donations from developers and folks that. I will not take donations from developers or anyone who's looking for permit approval. So I just feel, in my personal opinion, it'll be a potential. Well, I think it's a conflict, and that's why I will not do it. So, plain and simple.
Why it's not just developers, it's anybody.
For permits.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
No, absolutely not. I take ethics extremely seriously. I was appointed by Tony Preckwinkle to the Cook County Board of Ethics, and we took our job very seriously. In fact, we were the first board in almost 30 years that actually filed a lawsuit against an elected official for ethics violations, which is still pending to this day. This is how seriously I take that. And I've spent my career fighting injustice, and this is something that I feel very, very strongly about, and this is actually one of the big reasons why I'm sitting at this table today.
She just said thank you. I'm mic'd now.
Yes.
Okay, so questions, and I will tell you the order. The first one will be Andrew. Okay? The claim by the mayor and superintendent that crime is going down have been challenged on the basis of such points as population change and miss and reclassifying cases to lower categories of crime. So the question, what two specific things will you do that are not already being done by the mayor or superintendent to improve safety and fight crime?
Thank you. And along with city services, another top concern of mine is safety. So what I'd like to do is to have cops walk in the beat, building a better relationship with the community, building a rapport, having the community be more involved, that they're going to be more inclined if they see something, they'll say something. Once a relationship will be established by the police, walk in the beat, try to do everything I can to have more police officers hired in addition to the current load. As to another way of trying to alleviate some of the safety and or to alleviate some of the crime, to improve safety, is to also reach out to the at-risk youth, have more programs for them to get them off the streets. So it's kind of a reciprocal strategy. So you need the police, you need the community involved, and you need some programs that will actually benefit the at-risk youth and keep them off the streets. So, thank you.
Okay. And second respondent, Mr. Joe Morano.
Thank you, Elaine. The hardworking men and women at the Chicago Police Department in the first ward, so you know, crime is down on homicides 33% in 4 years, robbery 35%, aggravated assault 27%, aggravated battery down 21%, burglary down 28%, theft down 22%, motor vehicle theft down 60%, and arson down 50%. Now, that's not to spike the football. We have still more work to do. But the trend in the first ward, at least, and I can't speak for the other wards, is a reduction in crime. There's a lot of things an alderman can do. Some aldermen say call 911. I have a responsibility. I am not the police, but I have a responsibility as your alderman to do what I can. And one of the things we've been very successful at, when we have a problem on a block, we can usually identify it to maybe 1 or 2 houses, most times. We have closed down 6 houses, either torn them down physically or removed the gang element that's in there because I have asked for inspections of those houses. And why that's important is because a lot of these houses usually have problems with their houses in terms of city permits, inspections. And if the guy that goes there to inspect it feels threatened, he can bring the police officers with him. We've been able to close 6 of those down. We've also, as you know, have brought in the sheriff's office into the old district police station that was costing you millions of dollars and is out of date. And the Chicago Police Department is now using that for a satellite office per my request. We have to continue that, continue the progress we've made, and continue fighting for it. Thank you.
I would just like to remind you of the question. What 2 specific things will you do that are not already being done by the mayor to improve safety and fight crime? And Rhonda, you are up.
I've already mentioned that for 2 years I was in the alderman's office as a staffer. 18 months of that time, I was the liaison for the police. So I have had firsthand experience going to every single CAPS, sitting in ComStat meetings with McCarthy, sitting across the table and talking about best practices in CAPS offices. So I do think that this is something that is very critical. The 2 specific things, I agree, we need to hire more officers. Specifically, during the course of closing of the 13th district, I helped to facilitate all the aldermen got McCarthy to come and talk about what was going to happen when the 13th and 12th was closing. At that point, there was commitment for 524 sworn officers, and I have a letter from McCarthy's office that I can share with you to support that. A recent FOIA that I just got shows that we are only at 340 officers in just our own little corner of the city. So we need more officers, and putting them on overtime is stretching them and not putting our community first. A second big failed promise during that time, during the closing of the 13th, a commitment was made for a satellite office. And just in time for election season, an announcement came out that a satellite office was coming to the former 13th. That was disputed in an Our Urban Times article with a quote from the commander that it was not a satellite office. You and I can't walk in there. You and I can't go ask the police for help. It's a computer that the officers can use, which is important.
Thank you. First of all, I have the confidence from the Chicago Police Sergeants Association. They endorsed me at the end of the year that I know how to deal with public safety issues. And today I found out that I got the endorsement and support of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 7. Which is our Chicago Police Department. And what are the 2 things I would do? Well, certainly I wouldn't have closed the 2 police stations down and called that my proudest moment. And I would not have cut the number of CAPS programs. So the CAPS meetings under the new budget, and I hate to have to say this, we're lucky in the former 13th district areas to have them every other month. There are many places in the city that have them quarterly, and some that no longer have them at all. And these were all budget issues that Joe approved and voted for. So we talk about the crime numbers going down. I mean, we know that those numbers aren't real. We know. I've walked the areas, I've talked to people. I myself have been a victim of almost a break-in to my house. And for the first time in almost 15 years of living in my community, I've had to call the police, and thank God, you know, the officers came and they rescued me from that situation. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I've already stated before that I would increase the number of police officers, make our CAPS programs more robust so that we have more community involvement. Thank you.
This concludes the first ward, and we appreciate all your time and effort to come here, and all of your time and effort to come here, and we know that you're going to stay for the second ward. you.